Karmelo Anthony has been found guilty of murder. He's been slapped with 35 years. And a lot of people are angry. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are saying that this is straight racism. I'm going to break everything down to you guys in this video. But sadly, the riots have apparently already started. And this indeed might just turn into some kind of full-blown race war, okay? It's feeling a little bit like reverse O.J. Simpson vibes going on right now. Now, I'll be real with you. I thought he had a chance of getting off with this. The way that the story was at least told in the first few days of court, I was thinking maybe there's a case to be made for self-defense. Sounds like he was getting pressed. He could have been in fear. The other guy was big, but the court is not buying it, and it is official. 35 years. He had already been sentenced. They've sentenced him rapidly, okay? They deliberated for only a few hours, and then the moment was revealed that he was getting slapped with this big sentence. So here's basically the news breaking. This is all just breaking right now, okay? But 35 years, they sentenced him damn near immediately after.
Fox News alert, the jury just sentenced Karmelo Anthony. We're going to be back with Brooke Taylor, who's live outside the courthouse. What do we have?
Hi, Jesse. Some pretty breaking news to give you right now. The jury has sentenced Karmelo Anthony to 35 years behind bars after finding him guilty of murder. I'm told that he is eligible for parole after he serves half his time. The jury had the option to give him as much as 99 years behind bars. But again, they have chosen to give him 35 years. And I do want to mention, we showed you those protests, a bunch of supporters out here. They have erupted again. Pretty shocking. This is a direct quote. I just heard one supporter say, quote, those twins, meaning the victim and his twin brother who were there at the time, are, quote, domestic racist terrorists. So pretty unbelievable, Jesse.
All right, well,
so that's the rhetoric going around, okay? This definitely has potential to boil over into something very, very negative.
I am being told.
This is the latest, the family of Austin Metcalf issuing a statement after the trial and sentencing. And I swear that sentencing came so fast. It was at breakneck speed. I was out at lunch. I heard he got convicted. And then before you know it, boom, they're saying he got 35 years.
Told that now there is someone ready to speak to the cameras. I'm not exactly sure who that might be. Do we know who it is, or can we at least bring up the picture that shows who might be ready to speak to reporters there inside the Collin County Courthouse? Let's see. Okay,
as the
let's take a
process
listen.
worked. And today, the process delivered accountability. We are grateful to this jury, and we are grateful that the good citizens of Collin County had an opportunity to weigh in on this case. I'm proud of the exceptional work of Bill Werski and our team of prosecutors, DA investigators, and victim advocates, and all the good and outstanding men and women of the Collin County District Attorney's Office. We thank all the parents and their brave kids who did the right thing. Despite the trauma of witnessing the senseless murder at a school track meet, they cooperated fully and testified truthfully. Their courage was essential to securing justice in this case. I'm especially honored to be joined here today by Jeff and Megan Metcalf and their son Hunter. Their strength and grace through this has been their strength and grace throughout this unimaginable journey has been inspiring. They won't be taking questions at this time, but their presence here speaks volumes about their commitment to seeking justice for Austin. I want to thank Judge Rhodes for presiding over this trial with fairness and efficiency. I want to thank Frisco PD for their investigation. I want to thank the Collin County Sheriff's Office led by Sheriff Skinner for providing the security for the courthouse. I want to thank all law enforcement throughout the county for making this a safe trial for everyone. This verdict sends a clear message. Violence like this won't be tolerated in our Collin County community, and we remain committed to protecting our schools and standing with victims and their families. Thank you. Okay, that's it. All right.
Okay.
Take care, sir. Thank you, sir. Cool.
Okay, that.
It's interesting, right? I mean, that really, you know, is justice. That's as close to justice as you could imagine a family getting. Not everybody is happy, though, and one of the big things that kept coming up was that it was apparently an all-white jury. Now, these are some residents of the area reacting to the verdict.
This is a no-win situation on either side, you know. You have a child that is not going to be here anymore. God bless his family. And to the family who's going through this situation with their son, it's unfortunate. You know what I'm saying? And I just tell people, like, we don't know all the facts. We don't know what was said, what was not said, because we weren't in that courtroom. So the only great thing about this is, you know, I just hope the defense, you know, do the appeal, and they just, you know, step on all, you know, what the areas that they missed, they bring it back up, because like I said,
So,
it's crazy.
Donna,
You know, either way it goes, there's no win in this.
I don't think the young man should go away for the rest of his life. He's a young man. Hopefully he can go, learn some lessons. I mean, come out and hopefully be a better person, you know.
There's no winners here today.
There's no winners. No, absolutely not. I mean, I feel bad for the Karmelo Anthony family. I mean, they're in a sense losing their son for a little while too, you know. But the thing is they'll most likely be able to get him back. Austin Metcalf's folks, they won't ever get that young man back.
It's sad, man. So these are some of the clashes between supporters that were outside of the courthouse, and essentially, you know, it's definitely tense out there as people are kind of going up against each other and, you know, beginning to, you know, accept basically the outcome of this trial.
Karmelo! What do we want? Justice! We want it now! Right now!
Witness is part of that, and he is white and black for them. You just say why do you have hope that in this case they brought us over here?
So it was popping, right? There was a bunch of little clips.
If this true, I don't believe. The woman here is crying.
This is a war. This is a war. This is a war. And it's been going on. This war been going on. They never stop being racist. They ain't never stop being racist.
I don't think necessarily outrage here. After the verdict has been announced. I don't believe.
It's extremely tense.
Oh, you a carpet kid.
So it's not a great situation. So what I want to do is just show you some of the reaction over in the various places. Obviously, Chiracology is a subreddit that we follow quite a lot for, you know, its street updates from Chicago drill. But obviously, it is a community that, you know, follows along with crime and, you know, goings on related to drill music in Chicago. But the opinions on this subreddit, I think I will find interesting. People saying they know he was cooked based on the way they presented the evidence. People saying saw that shit and nobody reported on it. They're saying, but Rick Chow walked. I don't really know what Rick Chow was doing. But basically, people are saying, all right, people are saying Zimmerman walked. Remember, as he should, he's 100% guilty. With that just about all white jury, it was almost guaranteed. People saying just in time for White Boy Summer, he'll be home by Christmas, just like Lil Durk and Rondo number 9. All right, some Chicago legends. But a lot of other Reddit subs have been reacting to this over on Conservative, all right? And notice they got Charlie Kirk in the display picture, right? So we're going to get a certain type of opinion over there, all right? This is him being found guilty of murder as it was reported, okay? It says apparently the defense witnesses told the truth and said it was 100% on the murderer. One even broke down and cried. Not good for a defense when the witnesses helped the prosecution. I think one was caught lying. They showed him on video on a field away from the incident when it happened, so he had to retract his statement. People saying justice for Austin Metcalf. So they deliberated for 3 hours. Saying 2-hour lunch might have been part of the 3-hour deliberations along with a 15-minute smoke break. They jest. People saying good, it's justice. Who brings a knife to a track meet? They tried to tell us it was a cleat sharpener. I don't remember that. It says this was open and shut. It was open and shut as case as it can get. But people gave us $500,000 put up for his defense. They're saying, will his parents get another GoFundMe boost they can squander? Of course they will. There's an endless number of black people and white leftist women who believed Karmelo's lies to contribute the first time around. Wow. I can guarantee these people are just as stupid now. It's not they believe the lies. They plain don't care at all. If Karmelo walked straight up and stabbed Metcalf for no reason, they would blame it on some kind of generational trauma or that Metcalf was being white threateningly. So r/conservatives getting a bit spicy with this one, okay? People are saying the fact that the trial came back so quickly and the verdict was returned this quickly means it was a slam dunk, but that won't stop certain people from turning this into an opportunity to riot and cause untold thousands of dollars of damage. Now, yeah, I'm not condoning the things that are being said in this thread. I'm just telling you what is going on in the zeitgeist, all right? We're looking at chiricology, we're looking at conservativology. Court TV having a meltdown about this. They had on a bunch of Karmelo supporting leftists, attorneys. One of them was literally crying. You could hear the audio when they were found guilty. It was insane seeing their wild defense claims for Karmelo. They were treating the justice system as if it was a political system. Justice was served. Now he should be put away for life. Okay? They're going to call this racism, despite the fact half the witnesses were black and said Anthony was in the wrong. The amount of misinformation from the black community and sympathizers was very scary this time around. I heard so many lies. It was a cleat sharpener. They jumped him. He was surrounded. Austin Metcalf is a bully. Just willful lies. We had court reports with what was discussed. Why bother lying? Okay. Interesting. It says, time to brace ourselves for the race baiting claims from the usual suspects. I give it 10 minutes before Al Sharpton rolls his irrelevant ass out. Not condoning that comment. Usual suspects is not really acceptable way to talk about things. So it says, can Metcalf's family sue Karmelo due to the guilty verdict for damages? If so, that would be an ironic twist. That GoFundMe money goes to the deserving party. Okay, and apparently civil court is going to be even easier for them to do that. So let's look at maybe a little bit more of an impartial group of people. These are the more true crime enthusiasts over on cases we follow, and they would report on the guilty verdict too. They said, feel bad for all the cops that have to deal with this crowd, saying, oh boy, he's guilty for sure. That was fast. Probably a murder conviction. I can't see 12 jurors compromising on manslaughter after just a few hours. It's going to be a bad situation outside the courthouse. People saying that's a wrap. Live coverage of outside the courthouse. People saying, God damn, that was fast. He broke down in tears inside the courtroom. You could hear it. The bond has been extinguished. He is in the custody of Collin County Sheriff. Bond is gone, right? Smoked. Saying, in Frisco, we've been anxious for this verdict for several reasons. We do not live in a community that's used to division like this. I moved here from New York City 14 years ago, and Frisco is not set up for this type of situation. Emotions are high and the threats of violence are very real. I just hope and pray for comfort and healing for both families. That will never be the same. Truly no winners here, just tragic loss. They're saying the Karmelo supporters outside the courthouse are hard to watch. The overt racism is stunning. There's people saying, joking sarcastically, that you can't be racist to white people. Saying, I'm shocked at the ignorance of Karmelo's vocal supporters. I bet they played a big part in why he decided to take this to trial instead of pleading down to manslaughter. I don't blame them. They've been fed bullshit by Karmelo's parents and NGAN. They will regret not taking the plea deal. People were asking if one was offered. They offered him a guilty verdict because they thought they had a slam dunk before all of this. He got screwed. He got cooked. All right. He cooked himself. So this is the r/news subreddit. This is a more broad opinion base from r/news. And they're saying that was quick deliberations. I don't blame them from what we've heard over the past few days. Up to life in prison. I wonder when the sentencing will be. Right. Less than 3 hours, including lunch. It was quick as hell. It's not a surprise how quickly they came to a verdict. Saying, I mean, yeah, that was the expected outcome to any sane person. Did you see how people were standing up for him on social media? It was disheartening. They're saying 99% of the discourse around this case had nothing to do with the facts. It was all just idiots arguing about race. Says, obviously, I can't believe there were people who actually rallied behind Karmelo, defended him, donated money to him. It is insanity. People saying, you know why? They're trying to say it's tribalism. And I'm sure this comment section is just going to get into an absolute just chaotic mess. So racism and or ignorance. There are people saying it's insanity. So, yeah. There's basically people are saying, look, there is a lot of inequality in the system. The black community justifiably often believes the legal system is stacked against them. O.J. Simpson is an example. He was acquitted because several jurors wanted to send a message to the state after events like Rodney King. But this was not one of those cases where a black defendant was unequally applied the law. Lay people are notorious for being legally illiterate and, more importantly, swayed by vibes and passion on controversial issues. Online spaces made it very easy for people to run with their own narratives on what happened. Feel for the victim's parents. What a nightmare this must have been. People saying the verdict is not surprising if you've been following the case. Don't see how it could have gone any other way. 100% stabbing someone because they shoved you is just wrong. No justification for it with a set of facts in this case. Glad that the jury saw that as well. Me too. Me too, gang. Okay, so people saying now go after the GoFundMe. All right, so let's get the legal perspective. This is r/law. This is what they said. Okay. Talking about, again, just how jurors deliberated for less than 3 hours after the defense was repeatedly demolished in court. 2 to 3 hours seems to be the minimum for them to even get lunch. Saying the defense didn't even put up much of a defense. He's on body cam confirming he stabbed the other student, leading to his death. While he's under no obligation to testify, he didn't. And as a result, there was nothing to explain why he felt escalating to a knife fight was necessary. The track meet this happened on was at school grounds, where his having a knife was against the rules. In light of the soft defense, I have to believe the state offered zero plea bargain, and going to trial became the only option to try and mitigate the sentence. That fist fight you mentioned didn't happen. There were no punches thrown. There was a push or a shove, but it wasn't a fist fight. Says that's true because instead of throwing an answering punch when Anthony was pushed or shoved, he stabbed with a knife. Austin started what he should not have amounted to anything more than a fist fight. He brought a knife to a shoving match. Okay. I guess we're all learning that if someone shoves you, you can't stab them to death. Good to know. Okay. Good to know. Didn't really need Karmelo Anthony to do that for me, but okay. All the MAGA subs are pretending liberals are outraged over this, but we're not. The verdict was very clearly justice served. For reasons known only to MAGA, this case attracted performative racists to Collin County, where they acted out seeking online engagement and likes. The provocateurs included January 6th convicts, one of whom stood outside the courthouse calling for the defendant to be lynched, not figuratively. It's easy to understand. It's just like MAGA trotting out that white child that was murdered by a black neighbor during all the George Floyd protests. They need to hold up an instance of a black-on-white violence in parallel to the actual racially motivated violence, because anytime they see something they disagree with, they need some whataboutism to fall back on. Pretty spicy way of talking about it. First time hearing about this, why is it politicized? Black kid ended up killing a white kid at a school sports function, covering a lot of political hotspots, youth sports, self-defense, race. The self-defense part isn't choosing a side, but that raised the general subject of what constitutes self-defense and what level of response is justifiable. And because it's Texas, the white supremacists calling for a literal lynching and the black folks saying this wasn't a fair trial because of his race, and both are wrong. Imagine two guys of the same race, it's still murder looking at the evidence. I mean, saying touch me and see what happens before someone pushes you with one hand while saying I don't want to fight you, and then pulling out a knife and stabbing them is murder every day of the week. Had he punched or slapped once in retaliation to being pushed, he might have beaten a simple assault charge with a self-defense argument. However, if he had even kicked the living crap out of him, he'd probably be going down for felony assault. So to escalate to murder is definitely not proportional to threat. That basically explained it the best. Okay. Got politicized because it's a white athlete that was killed. Controversy is really weird around it as cases go. It was the easiest case in the world to decide on the facts. 1, brought a knife to school event. 2, went on opposing school's tent and attempted to intimidate other athletes. 3, was the aggressor vocally and physically. 4, instead of choosing fist fight, he stabbed the guy. A fist fight he picked. Was on camera saying he stabbed the guy, so no doubt it was him. Gave no testimony to support his self-defense claim because he would have got shredded on the bench. A reasonable person wouldn't have gone from shoving to I need to stab this person to defend myself, so the self-defense argument was going to fail. It failed because he was the aggressor. Open and shut case. It shouldn't have even been a national headline. Says after the jury delivered its verdict, Anthony's lawyers asked for a private moment with the killer that was quickly shot down by the judge. The judge responded that Anthony has been found guilty and is now in the custody of the sheriff. Things move differently now, he said. Yikes. I can't imagine any court in my state that wouldn't give an attorney time to meet with their client after they were just convicted. They're not trying to break him out of custody. Edit, Texas gonna be Texas. Right? That's gotta hurt. You like, can I have a private moment with my lawyer? Hell no, you belong to the state. You belong to the state of corrections right now, bro. You and shit moving different now. All right, that is crazy. Crazy. So look, I want to have a little recap of some of the things that actually led up to this. Okay, because originally the jury was given 3 verdict options in this case: not guilty, guilty of first-degree murder, or guilty of manslaughter. Okay, now there was originally, it was being reported originally that he basically had the potential option of getting a manslaughter. And I thought maybe that would have gone down. You know, they're saying that the case had From students, coaches, cops, surveillance, and body cam footage, 911 calls from the scene. Says one of the most emotional moments was when Austin's family sat through footage showing first responders desperately trying to save his life. That's really sad. And we also reported that a Frisco detective confirmed the knife that Anthony carried that day was legal under Texas law and legal to bring in the stadium, though prosecutors argued the legality of the weapon was never the issue. Right? This is how it went down. They sat in court. They were showing him all the shit as it went down. So, I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty sure that this article, this article kind of got updated because originally I put this together earlier and it kind of had more information on the background. Now, what I thought was interesting was the fact that Karmelo Anthony himself didn't take the stand. I would have thought with so much on the line, just like we saw Tory Lanez went outside not taking the stand, you would have thought dude would have taken the stand. He would have given it a go, would have had a crack at it, but no.
I'm shocked by that because I've never seen a self-defense case where the defendant does not testify. It's like Law 101. If you're going to claim self-defense, you have to get on the stand and say that I was in reasonable fear of my life. I've never seen a case where they don't get on the stand to do so, unless there's like a video that shows you, but there is not a clear video here. And so you don't have anything but he said, and the he, as in the defendant, he didn't testify. Are you as surprised as I am, Chris?
I am. And the other part of it too, Dave, is the defense didn't have any witnesses who said that it was self-defense. Like, they don't have witnesses that had a good look at what happened. And of course, right. It's easy in hindsight to kind of break down everything. And of course, that's what a trial does. But what I took away from it was just how chaotic this scene was, how quickly things happened. There was just, the way it's been described by some people is Austin Metcalf didn't even realize he had been stabbed until after the fact. And so you didn't have any witnesses for the defense to come forward and say, I saw the whole thing and I can tell you 100% that Karmelo Anthony was acting in self-defense. We'll see how the jury reads it, but you just had state witnesses that said in open court that they did believe that this, or they did not believe that this was self-defense. And so the jury heard that, but they didn't hear it the other way.
I'm shocked.
So, yeah, he probably should have got himself on the stand. I said the same thing about Tory Lanez. How are you doing all of this? You're trying to create this narrative, but you ain't getting on the stand. You ain't saying nothing to nobody. How on earth are we supposed to believe you? So another apparently very emotional moment that went down in the courtroom before Karmelo Anthony got cooked was actually the autopsy photos. They were apparently shown in court, and apparently that left people in the courtroom visibly shocked.
Jurors in the Karmelo Anthony murder trial were visibly shocked when the prosecution showed them graphic autopsy photos. If you haven't been following this story, Karmelo Anthony is the Texas teen on trial for the brutal murder of high school football star Austin Metcalf. Some of the jury members reportedly gasped. One woman put her hand over her mouth as pictures were displayed of Metcalf's body, showing a large stab wound in his chest, which punctured his heart. Metcalf's family had to leave the courtroom when the grisly pictures were shown, and the 19-year-old defendant apparently couldn't or wouldn't look at them. His gaze was fixed on his lap. Anthony's defense lawyers began arguing their case on Monday, and the trial could wrap up by the end of the week. Prosecutors say Metcalf was slain after the teens fought during a track and field meet over, of all things, seating arrangements.
So, yeah, it sounds really shocking, and I really feel for the family having to relive that and even see that. Now, the medical examiner apparently testified that Austin Metcalf was stabbed in the heart with that knife, and it only penetrated 2 inches, and that was all it took to actually kill him and stop his heart, which is just so sad.
About this 2-inch gaping wound. She described gaping, and she described the difference between gaping and a slit style stabbing wound. Where gaping is more of, it's kind of like filleted open, not to be insensitive to it, but that's the way she kind of described it on the stand. And that it was a 2-inch deep wound that hit the cartilage of Austin Metcalf's sternum and actually pierced one of the ventricles in his heart. So he was literally stabbed in the heart, which is likely why the CPR and life-saving efforts weren't working, because no matter how much the heart was pumping out, it was leaking, from the source. So it was really establishing the gravity of the wound. And the jury, again, got to see 4 pictures. 2 of them were Austin Metcalf on the autopsy table, and 2 of them were the heart removed from the body. That's what the medical examiner was describing they were seeing. So, of course, I'd imagine that a family didn't want to hear that. So mom, dad, and some other people, I don't know who they were, maybe the aunts and uncles, maybe it's just family, friends, and supporters of the Metcalf family. They all got up and left, about 7 or 8 of them.
They showed a picture of his heart outside his body. That is insane. I can't even imagine what those jurors went through having to see that. And this man is the reason that everybody had to suffer this trauma. That is crazy. So there was apparently also some testimony from somebody called Eddie. And this was someone who knew both Karmelo and Austin from the school. He actually denied being friends with Karmelo, but he kind of gave a little bit of background on the situation that was quite illuminating.
We've heard this Eddie character's name, Chris, throughout the entire duration of all the student witnesses that have taken the stand. He is the common denominator. We heard a lot of people saying Karmelo knew Eddie. He came over and dapped Eddie up, gave him a handshake. Eddie was a childhood friend of Karmelo's now ex-girlfriend. So that's the connection there. Now, based on all the testimony that the students brought up during the prosecution's case, they were all saying that Eddie and Karmelo looked like they knew each other. It was the obvious link. That's what the defense kind of talked about in their opening statements. Of course, some people under the tent said they didn't know who Karmelo was, but they looked over, he was sitting next to Eddie. Everything came back to this guy named Eddie. All right. So I was thinking, as I've been sitting there for the past few days, that Eddie was going to be a defense witness, because if he's great friends with Karmelo, then obviously, he'd fend for his friend, I would say. But one thing I was thinking before he got called was, if he knew Karmelo, why wouldn't he stand up and let everybody know, when all the commotion started, hey, this is my friend, he's here with me, blah, blah, blah. Everything's cool. But never heard that from any of the students' testimony. But anyway, Eddie gets on the stand today. They're going through his testimony. He's about 5 or 10 minutes in. And then Eddie kind of all but says he knew who Karmelo was. They were cool, but he verbally said, I wouldn't say we were friends. It was just kind of someone that he knew. Okay, cool. Now we move on to the cross-examination by the defense. And this is, I feel, was a little bit of a win for the defense. They showed a whole bunch of pictures of Eddie and Karmelo at these different group settings, at Eddie's house, no less. There was 50th birthday parties for Karmelo's ex-girlfriend's mother. Remember, Eddie and the girlfriend, this girl named Valeria, they were the ones that knew each other, and Karmelo was, I guess, the third party, you would say. So when they had these family functions, Karmelo obviously was there. Okay, they showed some group photos, kind of establishing. And then, here's another defense win to me today. They showed photos of Karmelo and Eddie together, just being teenagers goofing off. One is playing a guitar. They're making silly faces at the camera. So Eddie gets up there.
So look, all right, there was clearly a connection between them, but this Eddie was not trying to jack Karmelo Anthony, wasn't trying to claim him. He was like, not really. So the defense apparently also called another uncooperative witness that ended up backfiring. And this was during a segment of the trial where they were trying to focus, on the size difference between Karmelo and Austin. They were trying to say Austin was this huge guy. Karmelo is terrified for his life when he saw how big he was. And this backfired horribly.
And we heard this for the first time today. He said, Karmelo, the whole thing with the hand in the bag and touch me and see what happens. He said that Austin Metcalf tapped Karmelo on the shoulder, like as an annoyance, like, oh yeah, touch me and see what happens. And then he says something that we haven't heard yet. He said, Karmelo said, okay, well, hit me and see what happens, or punch me and see what happens, which we haven't heard that testimony from any student so far. So I'm just wondering, why it was just now said here. We've had over 10 of these student witnesses, and it was just said now during this witness. And then, as he was testifying, he was kind of disagreeing with some of the things that the defense attorney was throwing out. Obviously asking questions to kind of fit the narrative of the defense here with the self-defense claim. And one of their, narratives that they're throwing out is that, these Metcalf boys were some big boys, 6'1", 6'2", linebackers, over 200 pounds. And they started talking about the size comparison thing again, starting to go down that rabbit hole. And they were talking about Austin. Austin was 6'1", 213, according to the medical examiner. And his brother Hunter, the defense is like, well, Hunter was similar in size, trying to make them out to be, the big bullies and all. That's the narrative they're going down. And as the defense attorney is asking this, I can see Jeff Metcalf, the father, just shaking his head like these boys are not the same size. And the young man on the stand said, I wouldn't say that. And he actually said that Austin was substantially bigger than Hunter, which is very interesting. I mean, you're going down this narrative and then you have a witness on the stand that's supposed to be in support of your narrative and he's negating things that you're saying. I don't know how that looks in front of a jury. I imagine it's kind of damaging, maybe not extremely damaging, but it can't be, positive.
Yeah, that didn't really help the situation. So look, that's kind of the latest, all right? We've got some updates from Fox News, Fox 4 News that are in the area reporting on it, okay? And essentially, he's got a new mugshot after his sentencing. He's getting processed. This is the latest. Okay, we already saw from the district attorney. They're saying Hunter Metcalf actually asked Anthony to look him in the eye He said he asked him to look him in the eye and said, I would really respect that. He's been trying his best to learn how to forgive. He's chosen God and is trying to understand why his brother and best friend were taken from the world. Now I want everything taken from you, he told Anthony. You took everything from me. I wake up every morning and his door is still shut. So he's going to cook him, all right? And 5 minutes after that, he was taken out. So Metcalf's dad reacted to the verdict, and we got kind of, reaction to this. They're saying Austin Metcalf's father actually spoke to Karmelo Anthony after he was sentenced and said something to him. Says Jeff Metcalf, the victim's father, called his son a friend, a leader, and a true warrior. Since the first day he grabbed my finger, he had my heart with it. He talked about the joy he felt watching both of his sons on the field, and at the same time, he also talked about a scholarship that the family had started in Metcalf's memory. Jeff Metcalf also called the public response to his son's murder sickening. He says he's been the target of 6 swatting calls, and Metcalf's mother has been targeted twice. With a gag order, I can't defend myself when people want to tear down my son's memory. That time is over, he said. I said from day one, this was never about race. It's about right and wrong. We're all humans. We all bleed the same color. You will face those consequences starting today. He also spoke directly to Anthony. He said he's forgiven him, but he's relieved that the truth and the facts have been determined. You failed your parents, yourself, and society. You don't belong in this community. You can't look me in my eyes, but you can stab my effing son. He cooked him. Metcalf's mother addressed Karmelo Anthony, cooked him too, all right? Basically, talked about raising 2 energetic, loving souls. Now I only have videos and memories of his laugh. She talked about the morning of the track meet. She said she packed her son a snack and gave him a hug without knowing it would be the last time she would ever feel his arms around her. You may have been given a sentence of 35 years. You should feel lucky. I've been sentenced to a lifetime without my son. Metcalf's aunt spoken. She was the first to address Anthony. She said the day of the murder is a day she'll never forget. The call from her sister, Metcalf's mum, still haunts her. Says the impact of his death is permanent. She said, we will never know what he could have been. She said her heart breaks for Metcalf's twin brother. Why could you not have just left? She asked. Reporters will move to other stories for our family. This is not a story. This is a reality forever. And that was him given the whopping sentence.
Let me interrupt you. The verdict is in. It is 30.
We don't need to watch that. But anyway, as you can see, there were big crowds outside the courthouse, people getting arrested. You saw this.
He murdered that kid. Hey, show you out here. How you out here tonight? Go out here. Pick a side. We on here. Hold on. Take your ass out. Over there. We gonna like you can't get assaulted. And then push this here. Yeah, take your ass home. He assaulted that man. I was standing right there. He assaulted that fucking man. Yeah. He came out here raised banging and he pushed him. Yeah. Hey, watch yourself. Watch everything. And we ain't trying to disrespect y'all. And we not. But we ain't gonna go for this goon coming out here, going against his own kind, trying to That's what you get stuck with innocent people. Trade places with Karmelo. Trade places with Karmelo. Trade places with Karmelo. Hey, we'll send him in there, send Karmelo out. Send him in there, send Karmelo out.
Hey, tell the other supporters about yeah. Tell them about yeah. Tell America at the bed yeah. Stay back.
So, look, things are getting very tense, all right? There's big crowds waiting out there. So the last thing I'm going to do is just touch on kind of this, this element of the racial tensions, okay? Obviously, we're seeing interesting moments like Karmelo Anthony's mother asking jurors to show mercy. That's not what they did. She said her son's very sorry. She still loves her son, but he got cooked. Guilty of murder. Absolutely cooked, all right? So I'm going to read you this article from the Washington Post. I'm going to react to this as I go. and just give you sort of my critique, analysis, response, and opinions on this article that is touching on a very important topic, okay, the potential for racial tensions as a result of this trial and the narrative around it. It says a Texas city was already struggling with racial divisions, then came a bitter murder trial. Frisco is one of the nation's fastest growing cities. That growth and a partisan election season has fueled racism and anti-immigrant bigotry. And so this is inside the courtroom. This is Collin County, Texas. The prosecutor in a controversial North Texas murder trial wanted to make one thing clear to the jury. This case, he said during opening statements, has nothing to do with race. But soon after the jury began to hear the case against Karmelo Anthony, age 19, last week, right-wing provocateur Jake Lang appeared outside the courthouse shouting that Anthony, who is black, should be lynched. Anthony is charged with murder in the stabbing death of a white teen at a track meet last year. He pled not guilty, claiming self-defense. Lang is not a resident of Frisco. He lives in Florida. But he's repeatedly used the April 2025 killing of high school student Austin Metcalf, 17, to promote racial divisions in a fast-growing city of 250,000 north of Dallas. Lang first gained notoriety as part of the mob that stormed the Capitol on January the 6th, 2021, and since injected himself and his racialized rhetoric into high-profile national news events. In Frisco, he found a community that was already dealing with ethnic and racial divisions even before the Metcalf killing. A candidate for Frisco mayor has called immigrants rats and Islam a terrorist group, while speakers at a city council meeting have complained about an Indian takeover, accused illegal immigrants of stealing American jobs, and tried to block construction of a new Hindu temple and mosque. For the record, I denounce all of these sentiments. All right, we condone this, we don't support this. I'm just making this video for journalistic and documentary purposes to analyze these issues, but not endorse them. Remarks at some meetings have been so abusive, the mayor suspended public comment this month to foster a return to civility. Trey Snyder, a local small business owner, said he came to the courthouse because he feared Black Lives Matter activists would use the trial as an excuse to riot. He said he opposes illegal immigration and fears Muslim extremism. We love legal immigrants and immigrants who want to be part of America, said Snyder, 58. We don't want to be taken over like Europe. Marlana Christopher, another local business owner, said she was drawn to the courthouse as a mother of 6 black sons, concerned that Anthony receive a fair trial amid the racist backlash she says has overshadowed the case. Collin County is 100% red county, and they see that changing, said Christopher, 46. There's a lot of fear-mongering, political propaganda. That there is, all right? Look what they're doing. White Lives Matter, whitereplacement.org. So it's like, these guys are coming to start beef with the black people that are shouting justice for Karmelo Anthony, and this is what you call a powder keg, I would say. Frisco has grown 61% in the last decade, making it the 10th fastest growing city in the United States, according to a study released this month. Frisco had a population of under 35,000 as recently as 2000, before the arrival of corporate headquarters and sports teams. Keurig, Dr. Pepper, Ruiz Foods, Addis Home Care, PGA of America, the Dallas Cowboys, and soccer club FC Dallas all helped drive the explosive growth that spread north from Dallas. It's now about 46% white, 34% Asian, primarily Indian American, 10% Latino, 10% black, according to the latest census. And surrounding Collin and Denton counties are home of 4 of the country's fastest growing cities. While Collin County and Denton are still considered deeply red, most local and state officials are Republican. As the area has grown, it has become increasingly politically diverse. Trump garnered a 54% of the vote in Collin County, Kamala Harris 53% countywide in 2024, less than the margin that Trump won Texas. So these are people lining up at the courthouse to go to the trial. It says there's also more diverse Republicans. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, a staunch Trump ally running for U.S. Senate, is a longtime Collin County resident. But so is Abraham George, an Indian-American immigrant elected chair of the Texas GOP. Burt Thacker, also immigrated from India, is among the Republican-aligned members of Frisco's nonpartisan city council. Thacker blames outsiders for stirring anti-immigrant hate at Frisco council meetings. Apparently there's a lot of disaffected Americans who are asking, hey, why are we outsourcing jobs, Thacker said. There's a group of people who grew up here saying, hey, where is my American dream? But the counterpoint is that there are also people who came here legally and say, I have an American dream too. But Reverend Billy Eccles Richter, lead pastor at Grace Avenue United Methodist Church in Frisco for 27 years, said the hateful rhetoric has come from locals too. As we've become diversified, there are some people that have become very afraid, particularly white nationalists in our community, that these other groups are going to come and take over, says Eccles Richter, president of Frisco's Interfaith Alliance, which includes members of the local mosque and Hindu temple. Eccles Richter said that Frisco's economic growth is riding on the election to replace Frisco's mayor of 9 years. What's at stake is whether we're going to continue to be a world-class city or pull back and be known as a city that doesn't believe in diversity, he said. It could deeply affect the strategic growth of Frisco. Businesses are not going to want to come to a city if there's this sense of hate and bigotry. Metcalf's killing at a high school track meet started, authorities say, when Anthony sat under the tent of Metcalf's team. So we kind of know the story of it. But basically, it says the encounter ended with Anthony telling law enforcement he pulled a knife and stabbed Metcalf. Right-wing influencers like Yang have seized on the youth's races, drawing national scrutiny. Initially, Metcalf's father disavowed those who focused on race as a contributing factor, but Lang, 30, and other conservative influencers begun attending city council meetings in what Lang called Friscoistan. That's crazy. Friscoistan. That don't really even make sense. Like, it's got a kind of line. It's got a rhyme. Friscoistan. Can't do O and I. Anyway, using the public comment period to disparage South Asian and Muslim immigrants, saying that they were taking over Texas, accusing them of PDF things, visa fraud, and refusing to assimilate. Nia Suratran, 22, a Hindu tech worker raised in Frisco, started attending council meetings earlier this year to debunk misinformation. At the first meeting, she watched the audience cheer as a man carrying an Indian flag and speaking with a fake Indian accent said he loves to defecate in the streets and litter to make it feel more like home. To see something like that was jarring, Suratran said, noting the video went on to garner millions of views online. At another council meeting, she saw a right-wing influencer taking photos of a local Boy Scout troop, posting them online, alleging that the group had been taken over by Indians. But at the same time, they're calling for Indians to assimilate, so when we are doing American things, that's a problem, but when we're not, it's also a problem, says Suratran, whose speech at the council also went viral. Last month, anti-immigrant rhetoric helped extreme right-wing candidates win Texas GOP runoffs for U.S. Senate, Attorney General, and even Railroad Commissioner. Now that MAGA extremism is becoming the norm, people are more comfortable being racist in person and online, Suratran said. A city council meeting last month grew particularly heated when the council did not block plans for a new mosque, Hindu, and Jain temples. At the most recent meeting earlier this month, outgoing Mayor Jeff Cheney announced that he was suspending public comment until the new mayor takes office in August. It's moved beyond a First Amendment issue and become a safety issue. We will return to civility, Cheney said afterward, noting safety concerns for residents attending the meetings. At some point, you just have to turn the temperature down. It's become part of the mayor's race. This rhetoric has become part of that. Okay, it's getting seriously politicized. So it says, Cheney has endorsed Mark Hill to succeed him, a local attorney and former school board member whose campaign motto is Unite Frisco. Candidates should be lowering the temperature, not raising it, Hill told the Washington Post. Frisco residents, he said, are coming from all over, and I want to keep it that way. Rod Vilhauer, whose campaign motto is Frisco First, told the podcast that people are coming in and out of here like rats. He refused to attend a candidate forum at the local mosque. I don't condone referring to anybody as a rat, by the way. I disavow that. And earlier this month, he told a Dallas area South Asian radio network, the people I want run out of here are the people that govern themselves by Sharia. He said that he values Hispanic people, but they're never going to be doctors and they're never going to be tech people. Vilhauer told the Post he publicly apologized for comments impugning legal immigrants and met with their families. We're a cultural melting pot, he said of Frisco, where he's lived for 40 years. I just want the right development and the right people here. At Peace Middle East Cafe that opened last week down the street from Frisco City Hall, owner Jihad Wadi described himself as a Palestinian Syrian American, said he's tired of the extremism. It should be a lot more peaceful, he said. Wadi, 35, said he supported the mayor's decision to suspend public comment. Freedom of speech should end when you're threatening people's existence. At Frisco's sprawling Karaya CD Hanuman Temple, Lakshmi Tamala, a local real estate agent, said she was heartened by support from the community after anti-immigrant protesters targeted the temple. We continue on our path, Tamala said. It's kind of like being in the eye of the storm. So look, this is a very unfortunate situation. I'm glad that at least justice appears to have been done in this situation. I do agree that this has been unduly politicized in a way that really isn't helpful or conducive to a civilized society. So it is quite disappointing to see something so sad and real get co-opted by extremist lunatics on all sides of politics and racial lines. So I hope the city can heal. I hope people can move forward from this. I'm glad that the Metcalf family got the justice that they were looking for. And Karmelo Anthony, cooked. Absolutely cooked. Went out sad. Very, very dumb way to go out. So don't bring a knife to a shoving match and you'll be good. That's the end of the video. Peace out.